The other night, I was catching up with a friend of mine, a 26-year-old finance professional in Shenzhen named Li. She was showing me her latest self-care purchase, a sleek, high-end device that looked more like an elegant piece of modern art than a piece of adult equipment. She spoke about it with this refreshingly candid enthusiasm, her face just lighting up as she described it as a way to finally take back control of her own pleasure. At first glance, Li seems like the perfect data point for the sex recession narrative that's been haunting Chinese headlines. You've likely seen the numbers. Condom sales have plummeted by a staggering 25% over the last few years. And at the same time, the sex toy market has nearly doubled, nearing a 200 billion yuan valuation. To many observers, the conclusion is obvious. China has become a low-desire society. The story being told is that young people, crushed by the involution of the workplace and astronomical housing prices, have effectively retired from human intimacy, trading partners for silicon. But then, Li dropped a detail that just flipped the entire script. She mentioned that her long-term boyfriend was actually the one who helped her pick it out. It's not about replacing him, she told me with a shrug. It's about making the time we do have better. And that one sentence made me rethink everything I thought I knew about those bleak market statistics. That instantaneous realization that the rise of toys might actually signal a maturation of intimacy rather than its death left me wondering if we've been reading the data entirely wrong. Is the shrinking condom market really proof of a demographic collapse, or is it just a side effect of shifting government policies and a move toward higher quality? The one cold, one hot phenomenon is real, but the story it tells isn't necessarily one of a sexless generation. It's a story about a sophisticated, evolving society that the headlines are completely missing. Okay, let's unpack this. Our mission for this deep dive is to look past the surface panic. We need to unpack these seemingly contradictory market trends, the cold condom sales versus the hot sex toy boom, and determine if the data points to a collapse of intimacy or perhaps a profound maturation of consumer sophistication and social attitudes in one of the world's most dynamic economies.
And what's so fascinating here is that this economic shift, this one cold, one hot, isn't occurring in a vacuum at all.
Right. There's a much bigger context.
A much bigger one. You have to frame it within the larger story of China's ongoing sexual revolution. I mean, this is a massive shift that impacts society, the economy, personal wellness.
Yeah.
It's not just about what happens behind closed doors.
So it's a societal transformation playing out in the marketplace.
Precisely. The sociologist Pan Suming, he noted this fundamental cultural shift years ago. China is moving from a mentality of sex for reproduction to a widespread societal acceptance of sex for pleasure.
And that one philosophical change underpins everything else.
It underpins everything we are seeing in the market today. If you connect this to the bigger picture, it means that the consumer market is, well, it's simply catching up to this seismic shift that has occurred in social values over the last few decades.
I see the logic, but that must be a statistical nightmare to untangle. I mean, the transition from a highly regulated, reproduction-focused society to one embracing pleasure and choice, that must have been historically swift. It must have created massive cultural turbulence.
It was incredibly fast.
So what does this revolution actually look like in the raw data, and how fast did it really happen? Let's start with the foundation then.
Yeah.
What exactly does this sexual revolution look like on the ground?
The scale of change is staggering. We're talking about a transformation that took place largely over just 2 generations, and it fundamentally reshaped the private lives of hundreds of millions of people.
2 generations. That's lightning fast in historical terms.
It is. Consider the survey work of sexologist Li Yinhe. Her longitudinal studies really provide the best measure of this acceleration. In her 1989 survey, only 15% of adults reported having sex before marriage.
15%, which was totally in line with the traditional norms.
Exactly. It was reflective of these deeply entrenched social norms that valued virginity and deferred sexual activity until procreation was the central goal of marriage. But contrast that with recent data.
And what does that show?
That figure has surged dramatically to 71%.
Wow. A 5-fold increase in premarital sexual activity in just 1 generation. To witness a cultural acceleration that steeped from highly restrictive social control to widespread accepted premarital activity, that kind of fundamental shift rarely happens without some significant social turbulence.
It doesn't. It signals a complete overhaul of personal morality and social expectations around relationships, family formation. It's prioritizing individual desire and connection over strict social duty.
And this is where it gets complicated, right? Because government policies played an unusual role in all this.
A very nuanced role. The initial ripple of the one-child policy, for example, which was a highly restrictive reproductive policy, it inadvertently promoted the separation of sexual behavior from reproductive purposes.
How so?
Well, if you are legally restricted to one child, every subsequent sexual act is, by definition, for pleasure, for connection, or for relationship maintenance. It's not for procreation.
So it decoupled the two concepts.
It fundamentally fractured the traditional Confucian understanding of sex as strictly a tool for continuing the family line. It allowed the concept of sex for pleasure to become more culturally acceptable over time, and that paved the way for the current generation's mindset where pleasure is seen as an end in itself.
That makes the policy an almost accidental facilitator of the revolution. And that shift toward pleasure has now become entrenched in societal views, going way beyond mere tolerance.
It has. It's snowballed into a profound normalization. Societal views have just rapidly evolved. Recent studies show that 85% of Chinese now view sex as an important part of a happy, healthy lifestyle.
And that's a critical finding.
It is, because it moves the discussion from just tolerating non-reproductive sex to actively embracing it as a component of overall wellness and quality of life. And this normalization extends even to alternative lifestyles. Opposition to non-traditional relationships has reached record lows in some surveys.
So it's a general loosening of social norms, an emphasis on individual liberty. This is not a population retreating into conservatism. It's a population demanding personal fulfillment.
That's it, exactly.
And we are seeing the central government not just reacting to this change, but actively promoting a more progressive environment, especially around health and knowledge. That helps legitimize these new norms and bring the public sector in line with social reality.
That raises the important question of institutional support, right? We've seen some really positive policy shifts signaling change. The central government has loosened regulations, for instance, reclassifying homosexuality as not a mental illness.
Which is an immense shift. Medically, yes, but the social and political impact is massive. It strips away institutional stigma.
It does. And they have also adopted a very progressive new sex education curriculum in principle, signaling a top-down recognition that the old ways of avoiding the topic are no longer tenable for a modern society. The state is acknowledging that personal autonomy and sexual health are key components of national health and development.
I think the biggest signal of official acceptance is that focus on public health. The 2019 Healthy China Initiative officially specifies the need for more comprehensive sex education in schools. When a national health strategy explicitly prioritizes education on this topic, it removes a lot of the lingering political taboo. It provides a formal framework for integrating sex education into the mainstream health discourse.
And the goal there isn't just to reduce pregnancies or STIs.
No, it's about fostering healthy, well-informed attitudes toward relationships and one's own body. That's a major step toward supporting that shift. Pan Suming identified sex for pleasure, not just reproduction.
That's the official push toward modernization, yes. But here's the enduring paradox, which explains why the market still fills so many gaps and why the revolution feels, well, incomplete.
Okay.
Despite this rapid social revolution and the new government initiatives, these deeply rooted taboos persist at the family and community level. There's a massive communication breakdown between generations.
The parents.
We know that 80% of parents feel profoundly uncomfortable discussing sex with their children. This silence at home is a powerful inhibitor, often based on traditional ideas of propriety and shame.
So that failure to communicate has a ripple effect.
It means that when young people enter school, even with the new official mandate, only about 10% of schools actually have a formal, comprehensive curriculum in place. This is often due to parental pressure, lack of trained teachers, or regional resistance. The policy exists, but the implementation is highly fragmented.
That structural failure creates a massive vacuum. If the family isn't talking about it and the schools aren't teaching it, where do young people turn? And what are the implications of relying on those alternative sources?
They turn online. The internet has become the default sex educator for half the nation's youth.
Half? That's an incredible number.
Over half of all young adults in China rely on the internet for their foundational sex education. And while the internet is a tremendous resource, relying on it for fundamental education means they are navigating a really confusing landscape of information. It's not always a bastion of reliable facts.
Especially on a topic this important. the information can be fragmented, skewed by commercial interests, or just plain inaccurate.
Absolutely. Especially concerning sensitive health topics like STI prevention or contraception efficacy.
So if half of young people are relying on the internet, and we know that landscape is also unreliable, aren't we just exchanging one problem taboo and ignorance for another, which is misinformation? That trust deficit must be immense, which leads us directly to the market.
That's precisely right. The knowledge gap is substantial. I mean, even among university students, a highly educated demographic surveys show a clear lack of basic, actionable knowledge around things like emergency contraception and the transmission routes for STIs.
The appetite for information is clearly there.
It is, but the formal, trusted channels are still struggling to meet that demand. This structural lag means that innovative consumer brands are stepping in. They're not just selling products, they're also offering educational content and building communities, positioning themselves as trusted resources for intimate wellness.
So they're effectively becoming the informal, accessible, and non-judgmental educators that traditional society failed to provide.
Exactly.
That context of massive social change, coupled with institutional lag and a search for trusted information, it sets the perfect stage for the market anomaly we started with, the plummeting condom sales. When you see headlines screaming that the market has shrunk by 25%, the immediate reaction, fueled by that sex recession narrative, is that young people are simply having less sex. But I suspect that conclusion is a fundamental misinterpretation. Let's unpack the structural shift, because this seems like a classic example of misinterpreting policy changes as consumer sentiment.
We absolutely must challenge that narrative of the false equivalency. The 25% market shrinkage is often presented as purely due to behavioral changeless sex. But the data is highly susceptible to a major structural correction factor that the headlines usually ignore.
That would be government purchasing reforms.
Precisamente. We're talking about the systematic shift in how the state buys and distributes essential healthcare supplies. The sheer scale of the state involvement means any policy shift is going to dramatically skew the market totals.
How significant is the scale of the government procurement, and what specific policy mechanism is causing the distortion we're seeing?
The scale is immense. Historically, the central government purchases well over 1 billion condoms a year for public distribution through thousands of health clinics, hospitals, family planning initiatives.
1 billion units. So that's a huge chunk of the market volume.
It is, and the policy mechanism driving the change is called Centralized Volume-Based Procurement, or VBP. This is a recent, sweeping healthcare reform aimed squarely at optimizing public spending, fighting high drug prices, and promoting efficiency across medical supplies.
So VBP is designed to get deep price reductions and standardization. How does that translate directly to the condom market decline we are discussing? Can you detail the mechanics?
Sure. It basically creates a massive financial inefficiency for the government to continue buying premium, feature-driven condoms. The policy mechanics are rigorous. The government announces its intent to buy massive volumes of a specific commodity, but only from the lowest qualifying bidders who agree to steep, fixed price reductions, often 50% or more.
So the focus is strictly on functional effectiveness and cost savings for the public purse.
Absolutely. When cheaper generic options are found that meet minimum safety standards, which generic condoms often do, the VBP process naturally steers government purchasing away from the higher cost branded products that offer premium features like thinner latex or special lubrication.
So the volume that is dropped is essentially the lowest value, most standardized segment of the market. It's either been cut or replaced by an even cheaper supplier, resulting in that recorded 25% drop in volume for the major brands.
Precisely. When the government optimizes its purchasing for basic functionality and cost, that massive 1 billion unit volume previously bought from certain large manufacturers just drops out of the traditional retail and distribution sales figures.
Which creates a visible but misleading drop in volume-driven reports.
It makes it look like overall consumption is down, when in reality, subsidized consumption has just become hyper-optimized for cost efficiency and is no longer part of the commercial market figures being tracked. It forces premium consumption into the private sector.
We have a perfect illustration of this shift. It's from a pharmacist named Mr. Chen, who noticed the direct impact of this policy at the street level in a residential district of Guangzhou.
Yes, it's the perfect micro-level view of a macro policy shift. Mr. Chen runs a small but busy healthcare shop. For years, he had a dusty corner dedicated to the free condoms provided by the government's family planning procurement.
The basic functional ones.
Right. And critically, there was often a social stigma attached to them. Nobody really wanted to be seen taking them, often hurrying away, treating them as a necessary but undesirable handout.
But then the government changed its distribution model.
Exactly. The government restructured its distribution under VBP, focusing on clinics instead of small retail pharmacies for bulk giveaways, and Mr. Chen decided to capitalize on that empty shelf space.
He transformed that corner.
He renovated it entirely. He replaced the utilitarian free bins with these backlit glass shelves featuring high-end imported brands and innovative local startups that focus on skin-to-skin technology, different textures, specialty features.
And he noticed a change in customer behavior.
A fascinating and telling trend. Young couples who used to hurry in and out now linger. They're comparing the medical-grade silicone of various products, reading labels, discussing features like ultra-thinness or specialized lubrication. They are engaging in a sophisticated, discerning retail experience for intimate products.
So they aren't buying less. They're buying differently. They're choosing to pay a premium for brands they trust in a private retail setting, rather than relying on the state's functional one-size-fits-all leftovers.
That's the whole point. The decline in traditional condom sales is actually a story of healthcare modernization. It's forcing brands to innovate and compete for the consumer's trust.
And their disposable income.
Yeah.
When you look at the raw unit numbers, you see a market decline. But when you look at the revenue and consumer behavior,
you see a market moving toward a premiumization model. It's an illusion of shrinking. Consumers are actively moving away from buying cheap bulk condoms toward more expensive, high-quality, feature-driven varieties. This is a clear value over volume shift that skews the unit-based sales data downward. But revenue can remain robust or even grow significantly.
And the market data backs up that reassurance, doesn't it? It proves that the value is accelerating even if the subsidized volume is dropping. We can't let a unit count obscure the financial reality.
Absolutely not. Even with the bulk unit sales shifting, the overall prophylactic market is still expected to surpass $5.2 billion in 2024.
$5.2 billion. And that's what, 5 times its valuation from 2015?
That's right, 5 times. This staggering growth trajectory completely defies the low desire society narrative. And we see this demonstrated by leading brands that prioritize innovation.
Like Durex.
Reckitt Benckiser's Durex, the market leader with a commanding 40% market share, saw sustained double-digit growth in China. This success is directly attributed to aggressive product innovation, like the launch of ultra-thin hyaluronic acid condoms,
which targets that premium consumer demand for feel and quality.
And it contributed to a substantial 15% revenue growth for them. The market is not cold, it's simply more discerning.
Beyond policy and premiumization, we also have to consider contraceptive diversification and, critically, female agency. Condoms are only one method, and the choices available to urban couples are changing rapidly.
Precisely. We are witnessing a clear shift away from older, often invasive, or provider-dependent methods. For example, there's been a significant decline in IUD use. In 2015, that accounted for 40% of adult women, a massive proportion, largely a legacy of historical family planning policies.
And what's replacing it?
In parallel, there is a marked rise in the use of modern oral contraceptives and, crucially, long-acting reversible contraception, or LARC.
The functional impact of LARC needs to be understood to grasp its role in this market shift. This is the move from methods requiring daily or monthly compliance to ones that provide years of protection.
Which truly decouples sex from constant reproductive planning and removes the need for reliance on male cooperation.
Right.
Correct. LARC methods, which include hormonal implants and specific IUDs, offer several years of highly effective, worry-free protection. This migration to highly effective, female-controlled contraception allows urban women to take greater autonomy and control over their reproductive health.
So they're not relying solely on male cooperation, which is necessary for condom use.
Exactly. For couples in stable, committed relationships who aren't seeking to conceive, choosing a highly effective, female-controlled LARC method naturally results in a substantial decline in their consistent condom purchasing volume. Again, it's a market dip driven by modernization, efficiency, and empowerment, not abstinence.
It's a sign of sophistication, not sexual recession.
That's it.
Now, let's address that traditional economic theory, the condom paradox, that the negative headlines often cite as having failed. The theory says condom sales usually rise during recessions as a cheap form of entertainment. We saw that in the 1929 depression and the 2008 financial crisis in the West. Why did that iron law appear to fail in China post-2020?
This is a classic case of ignoring context. The condom paradox assumes a level of social mobility and the physical ability to meet new casual partners.
Which was not the case during the pandemic.
The answer lies in the stringent, unprecedented nature of China's pandemic response. The key difference between the 2020-2021 Chinese context and the 2008 Western crisis was the sheer intensity of movement restriction.
So the theory relies on people using condoms for casual encounters.
As a form of cheap, accessible entertainment, yes. But the stringent, large-scale pandemic lockdowns restricted not only large social gatherings, but also routine mobility and, critically, the formation of new casual relationships. And those are the primary driver for casual, volume-based condom use.
So the dip in sales wasn't a permanent psychological retreat from intimacy. It was a temporary logistical anomaly caused by the complete inability to socialize or form new connections during those specific years when movement was heavily restricted. That contextualizes the decline perfectly.
That's the key takeaway. The market's cold state was a contextual response to restricted physical movement and a temporary halt to casual social life. As mobility normalized, the market has stabilized, but the lasting effects are the shifts toward policy-driven efficiency and consumer demand for premium products.
So if the cold market is explained by structural reforms, policy optimization, and shifts in female health autonomy, let's turn our attention to the roaring hot market. This is where the narrative of consumer sophistication really takes flight.
It is truly explosive. It marks a definitive shift in how private pleasure is viewed and consumed. We are talking about the domestic adult toy market soaring to RMB 348.8 billion. That's about $52 billion US dollars.
And it's nearly doubled in just 5 years.
It has. This is a foundational transformation of an industry. And what's equally important is the shift in focus. Historically, China was the world's factory floor for this industry. It manufactured around 70% of the world's adult toys.
But most of it was for export.
86% was for export. Now, that immense manufacturing capability is rapidly refocusing on the domestic market because that's where the high-margin, high-growth opportunities are. Domestic producers are now building powerful, localized brands instead of just being anonymous OEMs for Western companies.
And who is driving this explosive growth? It sounds like it's a young, modern consumer base with significant disposable income and specific demands for quality and design.
That's absolutely correct. The consumer is young, urban, and educated. Younger consumers, specifically those under 35, account for 63% of all sales.
So a clear demographic driving the trends.
Yes, and this age group is characterized by higher incomes, greater openness, and a strong affinity for tech-enabled devices. Crucially, the purchasing power is shifting. Female purchases of adult products have doubled since 2018. And this demographic is fundamentally shifting the product conversation away from simple, functional products to sophisticated, aesthetically pleasing, and wellness-focused devices. They are demanding that these products integrate seamlessly into their highly curated modern lifestyles.
This shift is about self-care and premium consumption, moving these products out of the shadows and into the realm of legitimate lifestyle purchases. The best example of this consumer mindset comes from a profile of Li Wei, the creative director in Shanghai.
Yes, the evolution of China's adult wellness market, from volume-driven basic sales to premium consumption, really reflects this broader trend. It's about consumer sophistication and the rising demand for high-quality lifestyle products among the urban middle class. And Li Wei's story perfectly illustrates this shift in attitude.
I saw a profile of Li Wei, a 30-year-old creative director in Shanghai. She represents that aspirational upper middle class. Can you just imagine her apartment? Minimalist, filled with high-end skincare, artisanal candles, the latest smart home tech. For Li Wei, her recent purchase of a sleek, high-tech rose gold massager wasn't a desperate response to a sex recession or a lack of a partner. She viewed the device as an essential, non-negotiable part of her holistic self-care ritual.
No different from her expensive gym membership or her mindfulness apps.
Exactly. She specifically said she was tired of the cheap, poorly designed products of the past that felt shameful or cheap. She wanted something that reflected her aesthetic and her standards for her own body. To her, this wasn't about replacing intimacy, but about demanding a premium, integrated experience in every facet of her life.
And that narrative, the demand for high standards, is the core insight of the hot market. When we see the declining condom sales, we might misread the data as a low-desire society. But Li Wei's story suggests we are actually witnessing a high-standard society.
A high-standard society, I like that. They are seeking high-end goods to reflect deep individual empowerment.
The shift from volume-driven consumption to this kind of premium wellness reflects a middle class that is finally prioritizing quality of life over mere functionality. They're viewing these products not as shameful secrets, but as normalized, desirable objects.
And this is being reinforced by online influencers.
For sure. Popular sex and relationship advice bloggers like Yi Heng, they reinforce this. She notes that many sexually active women have a very open attitude toward using sex toys, seeing it as very natural and normal, akin to using quality skincare or fitness equipment.
This focus on female empowerment and wellness-focused consumption is driving the creation of new companies focused specifically on addressing this newly sophisticated consumer, specifically prioritizing safety and community.
Yes, you can look at the O Collective, a Shanghai-based female intimate wellness company. They were founded specifically to address a significant gap, a market that was previously overly sexualized through a male gaze.
With products focused on performance rather than pleasure or wellness.
Exactly. Their mission is focused entirely on normalizing female intimate wellness by providing safe, body-safe products and, crucially, a community support system. They recognize that when women face intimate wellness issues, whether it's physical discomfort or emotional isolation, they need a supportive, non-judgmental environment.
So it's that community-focused, health-driven approach coupled with high-end design that fuels this premium market segment.
It is.
Now, the narrative of isolation, the idea that people are trading partners for toys, that's the most pervasive and reductive part of the sex recession idea. But the data clearly suggests the growth is not solely driven by singles retreating from social life. This market is heavily influenced by couples seeking enhancement.
That's right. If we look deeper at the market, the growth of the sexual wellness industry in China signifies a positive modernization of social attitudes. Personal health and relationship enhancement are being prioritized through diverse and technologically advanced consumer choices. The conversation has moved firmly to intimacy enhancement, not isolation.
And the high-tech nature of many of these products, with apps and smart controls, actually encourages shared interaction.
It does, and communication.
And we have a great example of how this plays out for couples facing the intense pressure of modern Chinese work life, the famous 996 culture where time is just so scarce. The anecdote of Lin and Jia illustrates how this technology serves as proactive relationship maintenance.
Indeed. Lin and Jia, a young married couple in Chengdu, both working demanding tech jobs, found themselves trapped in the monotony of the 996 work culture. They recognized they needed to be proactive about their intimacy.
They started exploring.
They started exploring the world of smart adult wellness toys designed for couples, often featuring remote controls and shared functions. For them, incorporating technology wasn't a sign of a failing relationship at all. It was a proactive, healthy choice to prioritize and enhance their connection amid their busy, exhausting lives.
They treated it like a hobby, a form of intentional relationship maintenance that required planning and communication, much like planning a weekend activity. Jia posted that she felt modern for being able to talk openly with her husband about their desires, moving past the stigmas their parents' generation held.
And that's key. This technology-facilitated discussion. This isn't a story of less sex. It's a story of better, more intentional intimacy, facilitated by a society that is becoming more open and technologically advanced.
That anecdote is critical because it forces us to define sexual wellness broadly and holistically. It goes far beyond the physical act itself.
It absolutely does. It encompasses emotional, mental, and physical well-being, things like healthy conversations with partners, self-understanding, confidence, empowerment. As the O Collective puts it, you are at your best when mind and body are aligned.
So the use of technology in this context is not a retreat from human connection.
No, it's a tool for prioritizing and maintaining a relationship in a high-pressure environment where time is the ultimate commodity. This generation is prioritizing intentional experiences.
And this isn't just a trend happening in the bedroom. It's intrinsically connected to China's overall transformation into a consumer powerhouse defined by discernment. We need to connect sexual wellness to broader consumer trends across the entire economy, particularly the growth of the highly knowledgeable upper middle class.
The driving force behind all this premiumization, whether it's ultra-thin condoms or high-end pleasure devices, is that foundational economic shift. The rapid growth of the upper middle income bracket.
Yeah, those numbers are huge.
McKinsey data projects that another 71 million households could join the bracket, earning more than 160,000 RMB annually by 2025. This rapid expansion of high discretionary income, coupled with consumers' underlying optimism about their future income, creates the massive spending power necessary to trade up and demand high quality in all aspects of life.
That's the core mentality of the resilient Chinese consumer. Even during challenging economic times, premium brands often outperform mass brands because consumers choose to prioritize quality when they spend. When they do open their wallets, they trade up to reward themselves or maintain their high standard of living.
Yes, and this choice is a statement of self-worth and aspirational consumption. They demand products that reflect their economic and cultural status.
And this stress on quality translates into extreme consumer knowledge. Functionality is absolutely paramount, moving way beyond mere branding.
Consumers are highly knowledgeable about product features and specifications. They are no longer easily fooled by flashy marketing. Survey respondents consistently cite safe natural ingredients and required efficacy, both functional factors, as the top buying factors when purchasing non-food items.
So they're getting much smarter about what they buy, seeking value by being knowledgeable and demanding transparency, not necessarily by sacrificing quality.
That's right.
This focus on functionality and quality is blurring the lines between different wellness categories entirely, particularly driven by female consumers who are connecting intimate health with general health.
Precisely. Female consumers are driving the market toward holistic concepts, looking for products that offer both internal health benefits and external aesthetic benefits, what we call beauty from within. The definition of wellness is becoming deeply integrated and comprehensive.
Meaning intimate care products are now seen as adjacent to sophisticated skincare or nutritional supplements.
Exactly. Consumers see physical well-being, emotional balance, and sexual health as interconnected, all feeding into their overall quality of life.
On that holistic front, what's fascinating is the resurgence of traditional Chinese medicine, or TCM. It seems to have been profoundly rediscovered by younger, health-conscious generations as an antidote to modern stress.
TCM is seeing a massive generational shift. It is officially cool again. It's driven by a perception that its holistic, long-term approach offers authenticity and stability, contrasting with the hyper-focused, stressful pace of modern scientific health interventions.
So younger people view the integrated nature of TCM as an appeal to authenticity.
They do. The TCM sector is seeing an annual growth of 20%. And this isn't just about ancient remedies. It's influencing modern product development in the sexual wellness space. For instance, TCM principles are being adapted into contemporary products, incorporating knowledge about specific acupuncture points for sexual drive, or utilizing traditional herbs for vitality, or addressing issues like erectile dysfunction.
Can you elaborate on how international brands specifically are adapting these traditional concepts to cater to this new demand for proven authentic wellness?
The integration is happening across the supply chain. Modern companies are increasingly integrating traditional TCM ingredients like wolfberries or ginseng, but backing their claims with modern pharmacological research to satisfy the educated consumer.
So they're fusing tradition with science.
Exactly. International companies like Holland & Barrett, a major global supplement retailer, are taking inspiration from TCM principles and integrating them into their product lines. They're positioning the result as a fusion of ancient wisdom and modern efficacy, specifically targeting the consumer who values both.
And that consumer confidence in TCM influences the entire wellness ecosystem.
It provides a homegrown, trusted framework for talking about intimate health.
And as consumers become more sophisticated and discerning, they are also showing a growing preference for homegrown quality over automatic reliance on foreign prestige. That has a direct impact on the success of these new domestic wellness brands.
That shift is undeniable. For decades, foreign brands held the prestige advantage. Now, this sophisticated consumer base increasingly believes domestic brands offer better quality, particularly in niche, high-tech, or culturally resonant categories like intimate wellness and beauty.
So there's data to back that up.
There is. 49% of those surveyed felt domestic brands offered superior quality, compared to just 23% for foreign brands. This belief system is empowering homegrown wellness companies in areas like intimate care and adult products, positioning them for potential international success because they are built on a foundation of high standards, sophisticated design, and local cultural relevance.
The powerful vote of confidence in domestic innovation.
It is.
Now, if the social revolution, increased consumer awareness, and policy shifts are truly happening and moving the needle on health, we should be able to see this reflected in public health metrics, not just Mardo data.
We can, and the results are a definitive positive. The positive result of increased awareness, better sex education delivery, even if imperfect, and greater health agency is evident in younger demographics.
Also,
Healthier sex practices among university students are being noted, with unintended pregnancies falling a clear 11% in a recent survey. This indicates that despite relying on the internet for education, young people are translating that information into safer behavior.
what about STIs?
There's measurable progress there as well. Syphilis rates are down, and the country is making significant progress toward zero new hepatitis B infections, largely due to wider distribution of testing and vaccines.
So this demonstrates that the increased public acceptance of sexual wellness as a legitimate health issue is yielding tangible, positive public health results.
It proves that the change isn't just about consumer spending, but genuine cultural progress.
So if we look back at the one cold, one hot phenomenon that launched this deep dive, the shrinking condom sales versus the booming sex toy market, we can conclude that the situation is far from a sign of societal retreat or social collapse. Instead, it's a highly complex market story resulting from a confluence of three powerful forces.
Those forces are, first, structural policy corrections, where the government's highly successful centralized procurement reforms, the VBP, optimized bulk purchasing, inadvertently shrinking unit sales figures for generic products while driving premium sales to the private market.
Second, consumer demand.
Second, a profound consumer demand for quality, driven by a growing, affluent, high-standard middle class that refuses to compromise on quality, even in the most private aspects of their life.
And third,
a profound modernization of attitudes, where sex is finally being viewed not as a hidden taboo, but as an integral component of personal health, intimate wellness, and successful relationship maintenance.
that's the final synthesis. This generation isn't turning away from intimacy. They are demanding better intimacy. They are seeking highly curated, sophisticated experiences and leveraging technology and greater openness to achieve what Lee said at the very start, to make the time they do have better.
Exactly. They are prioritizing their self-care and redefining what a healthy, modern lifestyle means in China.
The shift toward premium sexual wellness reflects China's broader consumer evolution, where simple functional products are being replaced by high-standard lifestyle-aligned goods that reflect deep individual empowerment, proving that the deepest dive into market data often reveals the most intimate stories of cultural progress.